This is London, but broadcasting to you, of course, all over the world, thanks to the wonders of the internet and SputnikNews.com. You can listen to the show on FM 105.5, are the magic numbers, in the Washington, D.C. area. You can listen on AM from coast to coast across the United States of America. But this is a radio show with pictures. And you can watch us on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Twitter. And lots of new ways that I don't even understand or recognize the names of. But I'll be telling you them as my intelligent friends through the glass tee me up to do so. Now, last week's show, which was special in many ways, was watched by 1,115,000 people and counting. That's 1,115,000 viewers. As I've said to you many times, we've no idea how many people are merely listening online, FM, AM, etc. So our actual audience for last week, if you added the listenership to the viewership, is becoming stratospheric, but it means I need to set a new target. As you know, I have repeatedly said I wanted to get to 1 million viewers. Well, now I want to get to 2 million viewers. So if you are watching on Facebook, share, share, share are the magic words there, because if you do, we'll quickly get up towards that audience of 2 million viewers plus listeners every single week. And that's important because the phenomenal success of this show in just 29 weeks, remember, from a standing start with no advertising budget, no press coverage, except in the Daily Express, with whom I've become unusually close over the last few months for reasons I don't fully understand. No newspaper, television show or radio show anywhere else has mentioned our existence. So what does that 1 million plus audience tell you? It tells you that all over the world there's a tremendous hunger for a different analysis of events, for a different narrative, one that more fully squares with the common sense of the majority of thinking people around the world. And you are not going to find that on what they laughably still describe as the mainstream media. We are the new mainstream media. Our audience is many times the readership of The Guardian. It's multiple times the readership of The Independent and of most British newspapers. It's many times higher than most current affair programs here in the United Kingdom, and actually bigger than many in the United States, a country of more than 300 million people. The reality is that we are providing a space, a free space, where alternative events, alternative narratives, alternative perspectives can be shared amongst thinking people. It's not called a university for nothing. And no view is proscribed here. I'll tell you if I think it's nonsense, but you won't be stopped from articulating it. So you can phone us, you can tweet us, you can even email us, and above all, you can phone us on numbers that will be coming up on the screen. There's lots to talk about tonight. I want to talk about breaking news. The Board of Deputies of British Jews, which claims to be the leadership of the Jewish community in Britain. It's not my business whether they are or are not the actual leadership, though I do see lots of dissident Jewish voices on social media making it clear that the Board of Deputies does not speak for them. But that's a matter for the Jewish community. Judaism is a religion. Its adherents, Jews, are a religious group. All religious groups have to be honored, treasured, cherished, and protected here in a free country, a democracy like ours. But no religious group has the right to dictate policy and membership of any political party. Now, to be fair, their list of 10 demands, 10 commandments, I think they wanted us to call them, so there you are, BOD, 10 commandments from Britain's Jewish community to the British Labour Party were breathtaking in their audacity. Chutzpah doesn't begin to describe it. Imagine my surprise then when every single candidate for the leadership of the Labour Party to succeed Jeremy Corbyn immediately, in Emily Thornberry, the shadow Foreign Secretary's words, fell onto their hands and knees in supplication. Well, a party that allows a small religious minority to dictate its policies and dictate whom by name it may be allowed to admit into membership is not a party that is likely to thrive. It will not thrive even in the sense that the people doing the supplicating hope it will not be the end of the war against the Labour Party, because this issue of anti-Semitism has been weaponized with the purpose of destroying any meaningful Labour Party. Of course, a Labour Party like Tony Blair's Labour Party, there will always be space for that. But if the Labour Party goes back, as it seems to be doing, to the blandness and the inoffensiveness of the Tony Blair era, inoffensive that is to the power in the land and in the world, inoffensive to the rich and powerful, if it goes back to that, then hundreds of thousands of Labour Party members will be looking for a new home. We'll be talking about this in the course of the show. And of course, we'll be talking about World War III that nearly happened last week after our show. The murder, cold-blooded, terrorist, criminal murder of the Iranian general Qasem Soleimani almost started World War III because, as I said here, Iran had no alternative but to respond to it. And if Donald Trump had responded to their response, then we would already be in the middle, if not of World War III, then of war throughout the world. And that war would have been unpredictable, violent, bloody, and potentially never-ending. After all, the Iraq war is still rumbling all these years after Mr. Bush and Mr. Blair shook hands on democracy in Iraq. What price democracy then in Iraq? Because the Iraqi parliament and prime minister have both told the US occupation force in the country that they must leave and that they must begin now that withdrawal. And the United States government have boldly declared that we are staying. In other words, their occupation of a sovereign country with whom they're supposedly in a treaty alliance is worth nothing, not even the paper that it's written on. Well, I'm here to predict to you that the United States will be leaving Iraq. It will either leave by agreement, by negotiation, in good order and peacefully, or it will leave under fire amidst chaos and bloodshed. But one way or another, it's as sure as eggs is eggs, as sure as the United States left from the roof of their embassy in what is now Ho Chi Minh City, which was Saigon, back in 1975. The United States will be leaving Iraq. And that's for the better. It's for the better for the people of the US. It's for the better for the people of the region, the people of the world. Because the tinderbox that is the Persian Gulf right now has not been tamped down by the failure of Donald Trump to follow through on his promise that, and I'm quoting him, if any single American base is attacked by Iran in response to the Soleimani killing, then much of our $2 trillion worth of shiny weapons would be heading for Iran without hesitation. And we have earmarked, he said, 52 sites, including culturally important sites. Sites of cultural importance to the people of Iran will be headed without hesitation for Iran. But Donald Trump stood down, and He was right to do so, and we should say that those who wished, like Pompeo, like Bolton, and others, no doubt, who wished for a general war in the Gulf, have been stymied by Trump's refusal to allow it. And it turns out that what changed his mind was tuning in to Fox News and Tucker Carlson. Now, color me naive, I never imagined when I first became aware of Mr. Tucker Carlson that the world would come to sit in the palm of his hands. He stopped the attack last June that Donald Trump had already sent into the air in response to the shooting down of an American drone. He stopped it in a conversation with Donald Trump, who recalled the aircraft. And now President Trump says he is listening again to Tucker Carlson and Fox News, which has persuaded him to try a different approach. Now, the US Defense Secretary said this evening that they are ready for talks without precondition with Iran. Well, I think that's the best news of 2020 so far, and I hope that they mean it. He kind of spoiled the pitch by saying that the only purpose of the talks was so that Iran could return to behaving like a normal country like the US, I presume he had in mind. We'll be talking to distinguished expert guests on the American track and on the Middle East track in the course of the show. I didn't want to talk about the royals because they leave me entirely unmoved. I have absolutely no enmity against the family itself, certainly not Her Majesty the Queen, whom I've met on a couple of occasions. Long life to her and to her husband. But I consider the political, judicial, the governmental system of monarchy to be really something out of a fairy tale, a Ruritarian fantasy. The idea, even if the royal family were models of Olympian intellect and physicality, would be absurd in the 21st century. But when they are so clearly, deeply dysfunctional below the Queen, it must call into question the length of time that the British people are going to tolerate such a system of government. I was just looking the other day at the number of divorces in the royal family. I realized at that point that almost all of them are divorced. Many of them have never done a day's work of any kind in their life. And Meghan and Harry, who are trending now under all kinds of guises, are just the latest of those. Now, Harry did serve a bit in the armed forces. I doubt if he was put in harm's way, and that's probably wise that he was not. But when he had his fairy tale marriage to Meghan Markle, many hailed it as a breakthrough. She was a Roman Catholic, she was a divorcee, and of course she was of mixed race. Let's call her black for the purposes of argument. Millions of British people, including my wife and me, watched the fairy tale royal wedding. Many of us hoped that they would be a breath of fresh air down the stale corridors of Buckingham Palace and all the other presidential palaces that the royal family inhabit. But that has turned out not to be. I don't know if it's about money. They're meeting, I think, tomorrow to discuss the financial implications of Meghan and Harry's decision to effectively leave the royal family and return to private life, but of course hold on to the royal titles, the royal dwelling in the grounds of one of the Queen's palaces, just refurbished at the cost of £2.5 million to the British taxpayer. They're going to hold on to that, going to hold on to their titles, going to hold on to their Scotland Yard personal protection at our expense, but they're going to be touting themselves around Disneyland, literally Prince Harry's just been captured on video actually asking the head of Disney for a job for his wife, and she hadn't even left the royal family's enclave at that point. Now, this could become embarrassing if the Sussexes set themselves up as the new Oprah Winfrey, as the new Jay Leno, if they set themselves up as merely a celebrity circus show, that could get very embarrassing indeed. I think it all calls into question whether or not it's time. As one of the Labour hopefuls, Clive Lewis, to his credit, has said, time for a referendum in Britain, that after the passing of the Queen, long life to her, that we hold a grown-up debate followed by a referendum of the British people on whether we should become a republic. We've actually got a poll up here. It says, who is to blame for the crisis in Iran? A, Iran. B, Trump. C, the United Nations. And you can vote now on my Twitter feed later. We'll have a royal poll. Now, don't forget this. You can delve into the growing catalogue of programmes of the mother of all talk shows and listen back whenever you like. You can download the Moats podcast. Just click onto your favourite podcast app and search #Moats. It's going to be the mother of all talk shows.